To Ethiopia now, where increasingly aid workers are literally in the line of fire. Getting food and medicine to the people who need it is near impossible as rebel forces and the Ethiopian military show no signs of calling a truce. Just this week, we learned that the World Food Programme has halted food distribution in the Ethiopian towns of Kombolcha and Dessie because staffers at warehouses are being robbed at gunpoint. Meantime, more than 9 million Ethiopians are wasting away. One recent report showed distressed mothers carrying their children, sluggish and weak from hunger, to a hospital, unsure if the doctors even had the medication necessary to treat them. The U.S. State Department says the crisis remains an absolute priority. But what exactly is being achieved here? And ultimately, how much influence does the U.S. really have over an Ethiopian government that seems hell-bent on waging war? Time now for the exchange. U.S. Congressman Brad Sherman recently tweeted, "What's unfolding in Ethiopia has all the makings of a genocide. We cannot wait for this to become another Rwanda before we take action." Representative Sherman joins me live now from Washington. He's a Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman Sherman, thank you so much for being with us. I do want to get to the nightmarish existence happening on the ground there in Ethiopia for people in Tigray. But first of all, I want to talk about the US's ability to influence Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Does the Horn of Africa, does Ethiopia specifically still have respect for the United States?
Well, I don't think Abiy's asking us for moral guidance. He's going to do what he's going to do. We can deal with the arms shipments, and we need to be putting more pressure on the UAE and Turkey not to ship weapons to Ethiopia. We can more effectively demand that Eritrea allow aid shipments to go through their ports and to the people of Tigray, because yesterday was International Genocide Prevention Day. Today is Human Rights Day, and there's nothing more important than avoiding what could be one of the greatest disasters of this century in terms of the number of deaths that could occur from famine, starvation, and the diseases that go with it. In Tigray and elsewhere in Ethiopia.
So just in terms of what the U.S. could be doing to prevent more deaths, I mean, we've talked about the fact that there are 9 million people basically at risk of starvation on the ground as I speak. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on Eritrea, but let's be honest, Eritrea is obviously low-hanging fruit. They barely have a relationship with the United States anyway. In terms of sanctions on Ethiopia, where are we on that?
Well, we've taken away their trade benefits. We've halted the foreign aid, but I think we need to do more. I think there's more that we can do to get the aid in, but it would require us to act robustly at a time when the American people are not looking to be dragged into other foreign involvements. We need to look at flying in or dropping from airplanes food to desperate people. We also need to put pressure on Eritrea to let the food go into its ports and then by truck into Tigray. I've suggested, and this is a bit inflammatory, and I wouldn't want to do this if it wasn't necessary, interfering on just a few occasions on ships bound to commercial ships going to Eritrea, which we could do on the high seas in order to convince Eritrea to do what they claim they're legally obligated to do, which is to allow food shipments through their ports and into the starving people of Tigray. And in fact, while the Eritrean government, in response to my efforts, declared that they acknowledged that they had the legal responsibility to do that, the U.S. Embassy in Asmara, Eritrea's capital, declared that in fact Eritrea is blocking food aid. So I think all parties agree what is legally required, and the U.S. government is very clear that it's not happening.
So, Congressman, I mean, yes, you've outlined a list of things that the U.S. could do, but hasn't done so far. Obviously, the U.S. has several strategic interests in the region, just in terms of Ethiopia being, well, not anymore, but previously this arbiter of security in the region. They don't want the area to grow more unstable. They don't want it to become a breeding ground for terrorism. There's obviously trade and investment considerations. But has the U.S. sort of placed its own strategic interests ahead of doing its utmost to save lives, as many lives as they can, particularly in Tigray?
I don't think it's that. I think it's inertia. And there's also a tension in the government. Are we most valuable as a neutral arbiter trying to negotiate the ceasefire that we desperately need to see? Or are we more useful pushing that food aid through a blockade, which the Ethiopian government and Eritrea would view as taking away their number one weapon against the Tigrayan people, which is famine, hunger, and disease. Mm-hmm. So there is that the tension in the U.S. government is, are we arbiters or are we actors, and do we get involved at all? I don't think that planning for future strategic concerns on the Horn of Africa is what's holding us back here.
So the U.S. clearly needs to sort of define or redefine its role. And you know, I'm being told that I actually have to run, but we're up against time, unfortunately. But Congressman Sherman, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you coming on the program.
We need to get food to people.
Right, absolutely. Congressman Sherman, thank you. And thank you for watching One World. I'm Zain Asher. Inside Africa is up next. You're watching CNN.